Again, if for any reason you are not comfortable being on a recorded webinar, now is the time to escape. Click that little red X and we will have the video and the transcript ready for you tomorrow morning. So, welcome then. This is the 4th installment of our Frontiers of STEM Learning webinar series. Today we are with Melissa Ballard, the STEM manager at the Afterschool Alliance, and she will be presenting on their amazing program, Lights On Afterschool. Join the nationwide celebration. It's a very exciting title. So we have about a half an hour here just because we know you guys do need to get back to what you were doing. So if for any reason we go past that half hour, again, please feel free to X on out and we will have the full recording available for you tomorrow morning. By tomorrow morning, we will also have the registration, I think it's up now actually, the registration link up for next month's webinar. Next month's webinar will be a tour of the new resources on the Star Library Education Network sites. That will also be a half-hour webinar. Once we get to September, we will be going back to the hour-long webinar format once we are out, safely out of summer reading. So one more administrative thing then before I hand it over to Melissa. Since we do have a small group, I am going to unmute all of you. If you don't want to be unmuted, that's fine. Just go ahead and click the little microphone next to your name and that will mute you. If I catch noise coming from you during the webinar, I will mute you. If you want to talk after that, just drop me a message in the chat box so that I can fix it. Those of you who are still not connected to audio, again, if you do have audio capabilities on your computer, just click the communicate button at the top of your screen. Click the speaker microphone audio test and that should get you connected. If you've got a headset, unplug that headset and plug it back in before you do that. It just needs to get caught up to the system. So with that, I am going to go ahead and turn this over to Melissa. If you guys have any questions for Melissa or technical questions during this webinar, please do put them down in the chat box and I will be monitoring that. Melissa?
All right, thanks. I'm glad to join everyone here today. I am from the Afterschool Alliance, and we have been a part of the StarNet project phase 2 for a year and a half now, 2 years. Time flies. But just helping them think about how to connect libraries more with after-school programs and youth serving programs, as well as doing some sort of cross-pollination of this just general expertise in out-of-school time STEM. So again, thanks for having me on, and like Annie said, I'm going to talk a little bit about Lights On Afterschool, which is one of our biggest events, and it's a nationwide celebration after school. So one, to help you think about how your library might be involved, but also how perhaps similar advocacy events could work for your organization. So to get started here, I just want to tell you a little bit about the Afterschool Alliance as an organization. So we're a national advocacy and policy organization. We're in DC. A lot of you are probably summer sort of feeding sites, and so one of our big national policies that we work on is around the hunger and nutrition. We also have a advocacy day on Capitol Hill, and of course, Lights On Afterschool. We do a lot of research, both in translating sort of academic peer-reviewed research for practitioners. We do our own issue briefs and reports. We do some stuff around literacy that you might be interested in. And our sort of big research project is called America After 3 p.m. So I'm actually going to talk about a couple of findings from that related to libraries in just a moment. And then our last big piece of work is field building. We do that through statewide after-school networks, other sort of partnerships with big national organizations, and then we do a lot of sort of webinars, toolkits, blogs, and things. I think stuff that you might be interested in. We've been working on some connected learning, of course, STEM, socio-emotional learning, things like that. All right. So before we dig into Lights On itself, I just wanted to give a little bit of context about after school. And this again is from our America After 3 p.m. survey, which we did in 2014. So demand is really, really high. Even though after-school programs have been growing, there are still about 20 million kids who do not have access to programs, and their parents would like to put them into one. So if you think about kids in your community, that's a whole lot of kids who could have or should have access to safe places where there is enriching learning and access to healthy snacks and after-school meals. So definitely a really important issue for everyone in the community to think about. In terms of equity, we find that communities of color, African American Latino households, areas where there's concentrated poverty, there's a much higher demand among those populations. And again, at American for Three, we do have state level data, so we do find that a lot of people like to use those infographics and data for their own purposes. And so one of the reasons why there is so much demand, parents are generally citing that, one, there's just not a program available in their community, or there's not a safe way for kids to get there, which I'm sure for those of you who do after-school programs, you have to think about how kids can safely get to the library after they end school. And then the other issue, of course, is cost. So if we think about those 10 million kids who are in programs, actually there's a fair number of their parents are saying that kids are going to after-school programs on-site at libraries, about 7%. But you'd probably expect about half of them are going to after-school programs on-site at schools. About 40% are going to those big national providers distributed around the community. And then we also found that science centers are another big chunk of after-school providers. The only thing that's kind of tricky about this data is that this is where parents know their kids are going. And a lot of times we find that some of the partnership stuff is behind the scenes. So we have seen partnerships with libraries where librarians are offering literacy expertise to help inform an after-school provider's reading program. We've seen like pop-up libraries at Boys and Girls Clubs or other community centers, as well as some partnerships getting kids access to the sort of computer labs, tech spaces, or maker spaces that are housed in libraries. So what is Lights On Afterschool? Again, it's one of our biggest initiatives, but it's a grassroots advocacy and celebration event held all across the U.S. At our last count, there's about 8,000 events attended by about 1 million people, and we are going into our 17th year. And the official date for Lights On Afterschool is October 20th this year. And we have lots of national partners, including all those big national providers like 4-H, Boys and Girls Club, Girls Inc., etc. Both the Boys and Girl Scouts, YELSA, Educator Innovator, the Science Center Group, National Public Rec, and the National Science Teachers have all been very supportive of this initiative. And so we both frame it as kind of just a time for you to be able to celebrate some of the things that your library is doing or your program is doing around after school, or to kind of bring together community partners around just general youth issues. And of course, it can function as a way to get connected to sort of your local legislators and your state level legislators as well. So I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But I did want to highlight an example from the Farmington Public Library, and I did see that Flo joined. Flo, are you able to connect your audio? If not, you can type in the chat too.
Yeah, it looks like not. So go ahead.
Okay.
In the chat box.
All right. All right. Well, if I say anything incorrectly, we originally weren't sure if Flo was going to be able to join us. She looks like you might be able to do this as well. So Flo is the Youth Services Coordinator at the Farmington Public Library, and she has been there for about 27 years. She is also one of our after-school ambassadors, which is sort of a yearly group that we bring together to train on advocacy and communications. So she's been doing a lot of advocacy in her state. The library itself has lots of sort of state-level partnerships, so including the state network for after school, the New Mexico Afterschool Alliance, the State Department of Education, and the New Mexico State Library Association. And then also, if you have questions about some of the examples I talk about with the Farmington Library, feel free to contact Flo a little bit later. All right. So they of course have lots of public programming for children and teens, but one of their after school programs I wanted to highlight, and it's their blended teen program. And so in that program, teens come to the library every week and they work on poetry and art and writings, and they publish it in a zine at the end of the year, and the library hosts a fancy launch party. And they also have some of the artwork and things, the picture on the bottom, is displayed in their mayor's office. And so they have a long history of doing Lights On activities, especially since Flo was one of our after-school ambassadors. But since Lights On is close to Halloween, they've done some Halloween themes. So you can see they've got a local artist who's showing kids how to carve pumpkins. They will bring it, kind of time it with visits from book characters. They've done outdoor tailgates, and they always make sure to invite their senators, city council members, their mayor, their city manager, and other important local policymakers. And then last year, they really upped their sort of tech and DIY offerings. So they had like a DIY makerspace. They had kids doing Minecraft, Angry Birds. You can see that picture there. And then for this one, you can see there's a lot of people attending this event, but they invited local after-school programs. And they had each program their kids would choose an activity they wanted to showcase. So they had slime making and board painting and a bunch of other fun stuff for attendees. Another fun thing is that some of the after-school participants in their blended zine program are kind of active in some of our contests around Lights On. So actually in 2014, one of their participants won the national poster contest. So her artwork was on all those programs and to those 8,000 after-school programs across the country. We also used to do sort of a design contest for a label on Tirani syrup, which is that like flavored syrup you put in coffee. But they had three of their kids won that for 3 separate years, which was pretty awesome. So they, of course, have the Farmington Public Library has made Lights On a really sort of core part of their mission and something that they do every year. And again, it's not only just a celebration of your after-school programming and the kids and the families that are participating, but it also can be a very strategic way to do advocacy and make partnerships and relationships with your local elected officials. Because of course, whenever questions about funding or friendly local laws and things come about, you really want to make sure that those people understand the impact that you have on your communities. So people cite a lot of different reasons why they would host a Lights On event. Really the key is that you can basically do whatever you want. We've seen talent shows, we've seen like hacker spaces, sometimes it's just like a showcase, but it's really about choosing a type of event that builds on your particular strengths and really highlights the work that you're doing. And so we have lots of resources that can help you with that. On our website, which is actually currently under construction, it'll be ready in another couple of weeks. But there's some planning kits, event ideas, ways to think about working with the media, which I think can be useful just generally. We also, coming up next month, will have a bunch of sort of mini webinars to help you think about planning and executing an event. Obviously, there will be a focus on the election, and one of the interesting campaigns that you may have heard about is this Letters to the Next President. It's something that's not specific to Lights On, but we wanted to use Lights On as a way to get people involved. And so it's really about getting youth engaged in civics and the upcoming election to write letters or create videos, really sort of any kind of public communication piece to tell the presidential candidates what's important to them and what's important to their communities. So we're going to have some webinar on that and some resources to help you with that. The other thing that is kind of cool is there's a new tool where you can search past events by sort of theme or by like any events that libraries have done, so you can really get a better sense of the range of activities that you might be able to do. And just briefly, I wanted to talk a little bit about the types of after-school partners that might be in your communities. And so for those of you who are thinking about who might you reach out to, who might we be working with in the future if you're not already connected. Of course, people always think about the national providers, but there are a lot of diversity in the types of after-school and youth serving programs that are out there. So don't forget about your religious-based organizations, community centers. A lot of public housing centers are really doing a lot more after-school programs. And then, of course, the nonprofits that work with immigrants or refugees are starting up smaller youth programs as well. Yeah, I'm sure as librarians you're probably pretty connected with your local schools and districts, but of course those school-based sites are very unique in every community. Other things you might want to think about is your Parks and Rec department or Police Athletic League also run after-school programs for the city. And if you are specifically thinking about doing some STEM initiatives, you can check out the Connectory, which is a database of STEM program providers. Which, of course, if you do STEM programming or events, you should also be posting on there as well, so parents can find you. Another thing to know about working with the after-school field, or you're thinking about jumping into the Lights On events, is that there are several organizations that we kind of term systems builders. So people who work on the sort of higher level partnership building, organizing. So we have in every state, there's a statewide after-school network, which the Farmington Public Library has a very close relationship with. And there's also sort of city level or regional intermediaries. One of those big ones is Every Hour Counts. So you can check their website to see if you have one locally. But a lot of times these organizations will do sort of big events, oftentimes at like science centers or so they'll do big events at science centers or museums or large public spaces like that. And so especially if you're new to Lights On, that might be something you could just plug into. So if you check with your state network or city network, maybe you can just bring an activity or set up a table at sort of an event that's already being planned. And of course, the national level, there's us, the Afterschool Alliance, but there's also the National Summer Learning Association and the National Afterschool Association, which is the sort of the membership for after-school professionals. All right, so I really hope that you guys found this useful and that it's kind of piqued your interest in thinking about how you might do some advocacy around the after-school programs that you provide. And also thinking about ways to sort of spotlight your programming to the community. I know there's other sort of national library events that serve a similar purpose, but this might be a good one specifically focused on out-of-school time and youth. And then I put my email there so you can definitely email me directly. You can also check out our website on STEM. So they know if you're interested in STEM, obviously. We have some like free low-cost curriculum that I think works really well in library settings as well as after-school programs and different research and things like that. And then I saw a question. Let me just open my chat. Yes. So everyone who registered for this webinar, we will put you on that sort of initial email to let you know when the website goes live. And then that'll have all the dates for the upcoming August webinars as well. And then, yeah, let me know if you have questions, either in the chat, I'm watching that, or you can, if you are connected via audio.
And I have unmuted everyone who's connected to the audio, so feel free to just speak up. Since we do have a couple more people than when we started the webinar, has anyone had any successful interactions with after-school programs that they'd like to share? Either in the chat or out loud. All right, then. Well, while you all are thinking, just a reminder, the link to this session will be posted by tomorrow morning on the StarNet website, which I assume you all know how to get to since you found us today. We also have up the link for next month's webinar, which is about all of the brand new exciting resources available on the StarNet online community and also the STEM Resource Clearinghouse, which we've developed in coordination with Institute Museum and Library Services. So do definitely go check all that out. I know a lot more people signed up for this particular webinar than showed up today, so if you know of anyone else who is interested, please do send on that recording link to them. If no one has, oh, I think I see a chat question. So Anne says, I'm not sure how to define after-school sessions. We've been offering art-based makerspaces and STEM workshops for over a year, but not daily. They're too small to have daily sessions. So Melissa, maybe that's something you could speak a little bit about. Like, how would you, if they wanted to say that they're doing an after-school session, how would you separate that from just normal programming?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when we talk about sort of comprehensive after-school programs, and those typically are the sort of national providers or things that are offered at schools and districts. And so that means that kids are going 4 to 5 days a week. They're there for like 3 to 4 hours every day. They're getting homework help. They're getting like a healthy snack. And they're doing some sort of physical activity or enrichment. So it's these wraparound services that we know are really important. And so what we often see for the libraries or science centers or other sort of, I guess, content experts in the community is filling in that enrichment slot. So if you think about wanting to reach more kids, a particular population, partnering with a comprehensive after-school program kind of gets you that built-in structure. And then it also kind of lifts the load as well for you to have to think about all of these other components. There are a small handful of libraries that are, are offering things multiple days a week, but I think that's rare, and I think it's probably outside most libraries' mission, which is totally fine, right? We really want to when we think about the kids in our community, we want to be bringing together all of these really sort of interesting and unique offerings from different community organizations, and I think that's where you really find the power in those partnerships. And I will definitely say that for like maker spaces, even like libraries having computer labs, that's usually a lot fancier than what a lot of these sort of traditional comprehensive after-school programs have access to. So I think you'll find that those programs in your era can be very, very enthusiastic partners.
Excellent. And Melissa, I'm not sure if you can see, someone was writing in the Q&A, they said this was very helpful and that they're interested in serving the intellectually disabled community. They're always looking at the presentations to see how it might fit into the needs for the population. She said this was a good one.
Yeah, so I don't know an answer to that community offhand, but I can check with some colleagues to see. But I think it brings up a good point in that the sort of like broader youth development field that a lot of after-school providers, I guess, would identify as, it has a lot of expertise in supporting special populations. So in thinking about positive youth development and thinking about individuals with special needs, and especially in urban areas, thinking about kids who have been, in sort of high trauma situations. So there are, I think, a lot of, for anyone who works with youth, I think that the sort of after-school field has a lot to offer just in terms of sharing resources and expertise. So I think that's another good connection to think about.
Absolutely. All right. Are there any other questions from the crowd here? All right. If there are no further questions, I think we're going to go ahead and end. Melissa, thank you so much. This is definitely a different kind of topic than we normally tackle in webinars, but I think it was great, and I imagine a lot of people are going to come download this one because it is a little outside the norm. So thanks everybody for attending. Again, make sure that you check out our website if you want to attend next month's webinar. Melissa will be sending everyone who registered an email with further information, so keep your eyes out for that as well.
Thanks.
Thank you. Everybody have a great day. I'm going to go ahead and end the recording.
All right.